Hey everybody, and welcome to this lesson on solving multi-step equations. So these equations are long, they look hard, so the first question you're probably going to ask yourself is, where do I even begin? There's two things that you've got to check for before you can actually solve this equation. The first thing you're going to look for is to see if your equation has parentheses. And if it does have parentheses, you're going to use the distributive property to get rid of them. Remember, the distributive property is where you multiply the number that's on the outside by the two things on the inside of your parentheses. Once that's done, then look to see if you have any like terms. Check the right side, see if there's any like terms. Then separately check the left side. So for it to be like terms, they have to be on the same side of the equation. You're going to combine those like terms by either adding them or subtracting them. And again, they have to be on the same side of the equation for you just to add them or subtract them. Now, sometimes you may not have to do both step 1 and step 2. Maybe you don't have parentheses, skip straight down to step 2. Maybe you've got parentheses, but then no like terms, so you go from step 1 to actually solving. That's okay. Look for both of those things and then start solving. All right, let's look at our example 1. All right, the first thing I notice is that I do have parentheses, so we're going to do that first. So I'm going to do 2 times x, which is 2x, and then 2 times positive 7, which is positive 14. And then if you noticed, I went down and I brought the rest of the equation down and I kept it all in order. Okay? The next thing you're going to do is combine like terms. So look at just the left side. I have 2x plus 14 minus 5. I do have like terms there. I have positive 14 minus 5. So 14 minus 5 is 9. So I can simplify that side of the equation to 2x plus 9. Now look at the other side of the equation, 7x minus 6. I did not have any like terms there, so I just went ahead and brought that down just like it was. Okay, so I've done distributive property, I've combined like terms, now I'm ready to actually box and solve. Okay, so remember we're using my box method, which means if you box a number, you cannot move it, it stays put. Since we have 2 terms on the left and 2 terms on the right, it honestly does not matter which term you box. So a lot of my students like to box the first term no matter what it is, so let's go that route. So let's say I box that 2x. That means if I box an x, I have to move an x. So I'm going to move this 7x. Now you see there's a minus right around that, but that minus goes with the 6. There's nothing in front of the 7. That means it is positive 7x. To undo that, or to make a zero pair, we need to subtract 7x. Okay, 7 minus 7, that's what gives me a zero pair. Okay, now go left to right. So the first thing I come to is 2x minus 7x, which is negative 5x. Okay, then bring down the plus 9, then the equals. Now be careful here, there is a minus in front of that 6, so bring it down as negative 6. Now from here, we have to box the term that's by itself, which is the negative 6. So if I move that, then I'd have nothing on the right side of my equation, and we don't need an equation that equals nothing. So keep the negative 6 where it is. It's a plain number, so we're going to move the other plain number, which is plus 9. The inverse of plus 9 is minus 9. So we're going to subtract 9 here and in the box. Okay, zero pair right here. So I have negative 5x equals negative 15. And then remember my little rhyme, if they're side by side, you need to divide. So negative 5 and x are side by side. So I'm going to box my negative 15 and I'm going to divide by negative 5. Remember, these fraction bars mean divide. Negative 5 divided by negative 5 gives me positive 1x. which is just x equals. And then negative 15 divided by negative 5 gives me positive 3. So my answer for that equation is x equals 3. All right, let's take a look at example 2. All right, again, first thing I look for is parentheses, and I do have parentheses on this one. The only thing is they're at the end of my equation, and that's okay. And if you notice, I went ahead and brought all this down. Now I'm going to do distributive property on the right side of my equation. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times positive 10 is positive 30. Okay, step 1 done. Step 2, combine like terms. Okay, so look at just the left side. I've got 3 things, 2x plus 2 and minus 6. We can put those together, the 2x and the minus 6x. Now the reason I circled the minus in with it is that's what tells me how I need to combine them. So in my thought bubble, I'm doing 2 minus 6. And 2 subtract 6 is negative 4. So that when I combine those, I get negative 4x and then my plus 2. And then the other side of the equation is equals 3x plus 30. It just stayed the same. All right, now choose a term to box. Like I said, you have a lot of freedom here. You can pick any term to box. Most of my students like to just box the first term and then keep working. So if I box the negative 4x, I have to move the other x. So that would be 3x. To make a 0, I need to subtract 3x. Okay, 0 pair there. Negative 4x subtract 3x gives me negative 7x. And then copy down the rest of the problem. Just make sure you keep it all in order. So plus 2, then comes the equals, then comes positive 30. Okay, from here, you don't get to choose which one to box this time. You have to box the 30. And the reason is because that term is by itself. All right, that's a plain number. So I move the 2, the other plain number. And the inverse of plus 2 would be minus 2. So negative 7x equals 28. And then last step, when they're side by side, you need to divide. So box your 28 and divide by negative 7. Now notice I did not change any signs there. You have to divide by the exact coefficient of x so that you get 1x. And then 28 divided by negative 7 is going to be negative 4. All right, moving on to example 3. Now this one's a little different because I have 2 sets of parentheses. Okay, so I'm going to handle those separately. So the first one I come to is negative 2 times 2x, which is negative 4x. And then negative 2 times positive 1 is negative 2. You can put plus negative 2 if you want to, but plus a negative is the same as just minus 2. The minus 5, we don't multiply anything by that. That just comes straight down. Okay, let's do the parentheses on the right side of the equation. Negative 1 times x is negative 1x. And then when I do this multiplication, I think negative 1 times negative 2. And that's going to give me positive 2. Now, some teachers teach that differently. They may have you write down the minus sign and then say negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. But minus negative 2 is the same as adding 2. So that's why I just go ahead and put plus 2. Okay, combine like terms. Look at just the left side for a second. We have negative 2 subtract 5. So in my thought bubble, I'm doing negative 2 minus 5, which is negative 7. So I can rewrite that side of the equation as negative 4x minus 7. The equal still stays in the middle. On the right side, I don't have any like terms. I've got one with an x, one without, so I just bring it down. And then you're ready to box and solve. So let's box our negative 4x. Again, there's more than one correct way to do this part. If you box negative 4x, you're going to be moving negative 1x, and the inverse of negative 1x is plus 1x. Okay, negative 1 and positive 1 make a 0 pair. Now make sure you go in order here. So let's do our box first. Negative 4x plus 1x is negative 3x. And then bring down your negative 7, then your equals, then your 2. Okay, from here you have to box the one that's by itself, which is the 2. It's a plain number, so I move the negative 7. The opposite of subtract 7 or minus 7, however you want to say it, is plus 7. Okay, these two make a 0 pair. So I have negative 3x equals 2 plus 7 equals 9. Last step is to divide. Again, the fraction bar means divide, and you have to divide by the coefficient of x exactly. So divide by negative 3 on this one. And then 9 divided by negative 3 gives you negative 3. All right, last example. If you look at this one, there are no parentheses, so we just skip on past step 1. Now we do need to look at our like terms. Look at just the left side. I have 4x plus 7x. Okay, 4 plus 7 gives you 11x. And then I just bring down the minus 8. Okay, now separately, look at the right side. On the right side, I've got 5x plus 2x, which equals 7x. And then I bring down the plus 16. Okay, now it's time to box and solve. So if I box my 11x, that means I'm moving my 7x. It is positive, so to make a 0, I would subtract 7x. Okay, 0 pair here. 11x minus 7x is 4x. Bring down the minus 8 equals positive 16. Okay, the 16 is the one that's by itself, so I box my 16. And then I move my minus 8. The opposite of minus 8 is plus 8. Okay, so I have 4x equals 24. And then lastly, divide by 4. So x equals 6. So once again, let's just go over those steps. Step 1, look for parentheses, and if you see parentheses, use the distributive property. Step 2, combine like terms that are on the same side of the equation, and you'll either add or subtract those. And then once you have eliminated parentheses and combined like terms, then you're ready to actually box and solve, just like we do a 1-step, a 2-step, or a regular equation that has variables on both sides. And that concludes our lesson. Thanks for joining.